Imagine waking up one day with a quiet splinter under your ribs, a barely there ache that somehow colors everything. The coffee tastes like duty. The clock on your phone blinks like a metronome of expectations. You scan your messages, you put on your face, you take your place. And yet, beneath the practiced momentum, there's a private weather system inside you. A river that wants to run, and a dam that wants to hold. You feel the urge to move and the urge to anchor, to protect and to surrender, to set a boundary, and to be immersed in something larger than yourself. Which one is more you? Which one is more right? The world answers with a smirk. Pick a side. You've been taught, perhaps without ever being told, that life is a contest between two currents. Call them masculine and feminine, if you dare to keep the old names. One is sharp, linear, decisive. The other is curved, receptive, intuitive. One builds the vessel, the other fills it with water. But what do you do when the vessel is starving for water and the water keeps drowning the vessel? What if the very words you use to understand yourself have been twisted into cages? You are asked to be strong, but not cold, to be soft, but not weak, to be wild, but presentable, to be ambitious, but caring, to be independent, but endlessly available. Who decided that these qualities should live in separate rooms? Who benefits from your inner divorce? You try a strategy. You choose decisiveness over doubt, grit over grace, action over listening. The world applauds, briefly, but your chest tightens like a fist that never unclenches. The moments blur. You move fast and wonder why nothing meaningful seems to move you. You pivot. You choose openness over order, sensitivity over structure, flow over force. For a while, it feels like breathing again, until you notice the leaking, the drifting, the way your life begins to dissolve at the edges. What's wrong with you? Why is every solution a new imbalance? Imagine the most intimate moments of your life. The night you chose to stay when leaving would have been easier. The morning you set a boundary that scared you. The time you surrendered to grief because pretending not to hurt was a cruelty you could no longer stomach. Were you masculine or feminine then? Or were you something else? Something that can hold a sword and a bowl in the same hand. Something that can say no with tenderness and yes with clarity. Here's the paradox no one warned you about. The more you chase one pole, the more the neglected pole becomes your shadow. The harder you become, the more fragility sneaks into your joints. The softer you become, the more resentment curdles beneath your smiles. What if your burnout isn't from doing too much, but from doing too much with half of yourself? What if the ache under your ribs is not a flaw, but a signal, an invitation to renegotiate the ancient treaty you signed with yourself when you were too young to read it? Consider the city in the morning. Asphalt and geometry, steel and structure. The subway arrives with clockwork certainty. Within that human-made order, 1,000 unplanned stories unfold. A stranger's laughter, a tear slipping into a scarf, a spontaneous kindness. The grid holds the pulse. The pulse gives meaning to the grid. If you remove one, the other becomes either chaos or prison. Which are you building, grid or pulse? Which are you starving? Look closer, into your conversations. How often do you speak to be heard, not to hear? How often do you listen without any intention to act? How many fights are just two halves of an organism refusing to share a heartbeat? The part of you that longs to choose waits for permission from the part that longs to feel, and both end up sulking in opposite corners. You've inherited stories about what power looks like, what love sounds like, where safety lives. They hum in your bones like an old song you didn't realize you knew by heart. When did you agree that masculinity must be invulnerable and femininity must be agreeable? When did you accept that your depth must be decorative or your drive must be antiseptic? Who wrote those rules on the skin of your identity, and why are you still obeying them? The unsettled truth is this: you are not a binary, you are a choreographer. And the choreography is ancient, older than your family, older than your culture, older than the words that try to claim it. Some nights you will be the mountain, unmoving beneath the storm. Some mornings you will be the rain, patiently carving the stone. Both are honest, both are necessary, both live in you, whether you give them names or let them remain unnamed. But the names matter, don't they? Because names make it easier to see the invisible. Names make it possible to pick up what you couldn't hold before. If masculine and feminine are more like myths than measurements, then perhaps the myths are maps. Maps that have been redrawn by empires, religions, corporations, influencers, parents, and your own fear. How trustworthy is your map? How many times have you blamed your nature when it was the map that was wrong? Imagine waking up tomorrow and hearing both voices inside you. Not as rivals arguing in the hallway, but as musicians tuning the same instrument. One says, decide. The other says, receive. What if both are right, and the question is not which to silence, but how to listen? What if the split is the symptom, not the cause? You can keep living as if you must choose. You can keep silencing one half until it screams. Or you can turn toward the splinter and ask it to teach you what the old stories forgot. To do that, we have to trace the splinter back to its source, into the places where psychology, philosophy, and culture braided a myth so tight you mistook it for your spine. Are you ready to see what's been moving you from the inside? You were not born split. You learned to read yourself in a language that carved you in half. Before you had words, you had signals. When you cried, did a steady presence arrive, warm, regulating, an anchor that said, your feelings can live here? Or did your signals echo in a room of anxieties and unspoken storms, teaching you that receiving is unsafe unless you control it, and offering is dangerous unless you hide it? Your nervous system built a map before your mind built a story. Polyvagal wisdom hides in your posture. Fight and flight forged a blade inside you. Urgency, direction, assertion. While social safety tuned a bowl. Attunement, receptivity, belonging. If the blade felt punished, you learned to sheath it until it rusted. If the bowl felt mocked, you learned to harden it until nothing could fill it. Carl Jung would call this the drama of the Anima and the Animus, the inner feminine and masculine as archetypal patterns of relating. From early on, you were encouraged to adopt one and exile the other. To perform a coherent self the world would reward. The exiled one didn't die. It became shadow. The shadow never disappears. It waits. It distorts. You project it onto lovers, leaders, enemies, heroes. You call it chemistry. You call it disgust. You call it destiny. But often, it's a mirror. Your unclaimed softness appearing as the intoxicating emotionality you chase in others, or your unclaimed strength appearing as the authority you resent and obey. What looks like love can sometimes be the gravitational pull of your own missing half. Nietzsche heard this split long before you did. Apollo, the god of clarity, discipline, and form, faces Dionysus, the god of ecstasy, chaos, and intoxication. Culture tends to sanctify one, demonize the other, and then sell you both in cycles you can't control. Apollo without Dionysus becomes sterile tyranny. Dionysus without Apollo becomes disintegrating frenzy. Which have you been asked to worship? More importantly, which have you been taught to fear inside yourself? Schopenhauer named the will, a blind, relentless hunger that drives existence. Mistaken as masculine by those who reduce agency to control, the will, in its unexamined form, bulldozes through life, exhausting meaning as it devours it. Meanwhile, a caricatured feminine is misread as surrender to that will, a passive yielding that calls itself peace but curdles into resignation. Neither is truth, both are coping. When the will is untempered by depth, by a receptive intelligence that feels the contours of reality, it becomes conquest without contact. When receptivity is severed from agency, when it refuses to say no or choose, it becomes dissolution without devotion. Sartre called this bad faith, the lie you tell yourself to avoid the vertigo of freedom. That's just how men are. That's just how women are. That's just how I am. Roles become camouflage. You perform a script instead of authoring a life. Your agency is outsourced to tradition, trend, or trauma. Your openness is outsourced to entertainment, substances, or spiritual bypassing. It's easier to be a category than a human. It's safer to be a caricature than a contradiction. But what part of you must be amputated to fit the costume? Enter Huxley's warning, a world where conditioning replaces contemplation. The culture does not need you integrated, it needs you predictable. The attention economy harvests your split by feeding one pole and starving the other, then charging you for relief. Algorithms deliver outrage to sharpen your blade, fantasy to flood your bowl, and distraction to keep you from noticing that neither is guided by a conscious center. You are rewarded for performative dominance in one corner of the internet and for performative vulnerability in another. The market idolizes hustle as a virtue and packages softness as a brand. Both become consumable aesthetics rather than living capacities. Where, in all this, do you stand when the performance ends? Language is part of the trap. When you treat masculine and feminine as identities rather than verbs, they coagulate into prisons. You start mistaking tendencies for destinies. You defend a word rather than cultivate a quality. Sapir-Whorf aside, words don't only describe reality, they contour your attention. If masculine equals mind, force, leadership, and feminine equals body, intuition, nurture, what do you imagine happens to your body when you cling to mind as superior? What do you imagine happens to your voice when you romanticize surrender as the highest care? The map quietly edits the territory. The labels become leashes. The roots dig deeper into family mythology. The father wound and mother wound are not just buzzwords, they are blueprints. If your earliest model of structure came fused with anger, you may conflate boundaries with rejection and power with violence. If your earliest model of nurture came tangled with anxiety, you may equate closeness with smothering and care with control. Then, as an adult, you build lives that confirm the pattern. You call it my type. You call it fate. You call it your truth. But often, it's simply what your nervous system recognizes as home. The known hurt feels safer than the unknown possibility. Neuroscience gives the split a circuitry. Your brain toggles between networks, a task-positive focus that narrows towards goals, and a default mode network that opens into memory, self-reflection, and imagination. A salience network should guide the switch, noticing what matters and recalibrating. Chronic stress hijacks the salience switch. You get stuck in doing or dreaming, action without intimacy, or reflection without traction. Call one masculine, the other feminine, and you risk oversimplification. But feel the resonance. When the gear shift jams, your life spins or stalls. How long have you been living in one gear? History piles on. The Enlightenment enthroned rationality over myth, body, and earth. And then Romanticism countered with feeling and nature, mocking the cold calculus of progress. Monotheism elevated transcendent order, while often distrusting the sensual immanence of the world. The pendulum then swung to spiritualities that dissolve structure into oneness. Industrial capitalism rewarded linear time, measurable outputs, and production metrics, marginalizing cyclical rhythms, embodied knowledge, and communal care. War valorized stoicism. Courtship rituals commodified grace. Colonial projects exported these splits and named them civilization. Every institution wrote a verse in the song you now hum under your breath. Viktor Frankl noticed an existential vacuum, a silent dread that arises when meaning collapses. In that vacuum, the split becomes expedient. Without meaning, you substitute power, to feel alive, or pleasure, to feel soothed. The former calcifies into aggression disguised as purpose. The latter dilutes into appeasement disguised as love. You oscillate, calling the swing balance. But balance without integration is just a prettier name for dependence. If you need conquest to feel real and comfort to feel safe, who owns your center? Here is the hidden mechanism. Social conditioning teaches you to outsource your missing qualities. You look for partners, leaders, ideologies, and brands to perform what you won't claim. You treat the inner opposite as foreign, so you elect it, date it, worship it, or destroy it. Then you feel betrayed when your projections crack. You blame them instead of retrieving yourself. It's clean, it's efficient, and it guarantees you'll repeat it. The problem exists because fracture is profitable, manageable, and contagious. Because shame is easier to sell than nuance. Because the body remembers, the mind rationalizes, and the culture choreographs. You weren't taught to be whole, you were taught to be useful. And yet, beneath the conditioning, the archetypes remain unbroken. The masculine as devoted direction, not domination, and the feminine as intelligent receptivity, not erasure, still speak a native language in your bones. You've heard it in moments that startled you with their rightness, a decision that felt like mercy, a surrender that felt like courage. But because the world has trained you to associate these domains with gender, status, and safety, you second-guess what is most deeply human. You fear becoming a stereotype if you claim one, and a traitor if you claim the other. So you hover, you hustle, you hope. What happens to a life spent hovering? What does a society look like when its people have outsourced their inner opposites for generations? What strains, addictions, political polarities, and private implosions emerge when we inherit a choreography we never learned to dance? We will go there. We will enter the consequences, not to drown in them, but to recognize the invisible architecture of our days. Only then can rebellion mean more than a rebrand. Consequences don't arrive with sirens. They arrive as routines you stop questioning. You wake into a life that feels curiously off-pitch, a constant undertone of almost. In your most intimate relationships, the split plays out as choreography you never consciously chose. One partner tightens to hold the line, the other floods to keep connection, and both accuse the other of not listening. Pursuer and withdrawer, storm and stone. You call it chemistry, when it's mostly familiar pain. The conversations loop because the underlying dynamic never changes. Agency is mistaken for aggression. Receptivity is mistaken for weakness. You argue about dishes and schedules, but really you're negotiating a contract about safety. Whose need gets to count first? Where does your yes come from? Where does your no belong? Cognitive biases grease the loop. Confirmation bias cherry-picks every example that proves your partner is too much or not enough. Fundamental attribution error turns their bad day into their character, but your outburst into an understandable exception. The halo effect makes early passion gloss over misalignments in values. The sunk cost fallacy keeps you investing in patterns that deplete you because leaving would mean admitting a misread. Meanwhile, your nervous systems are bargaining. When your body reads the other as threat, your prefrontal cortex, the part that plans, reasons, empathizes, plugs into a dimmer switch. The amygdala shouts, vagal tone drops, and breath becomes a telegraph of alarm. Oxytocin can't do its gentle work in an air raid. Intimacy becomes a negotiation between two limbic systems wearing adult costumes. Sex doesn't escape the split, it amplifies it. Without presence, direction becomes pressure. Without sovereignty, surrender becomes collapse. When the masculine quality of clear offering has been turned into entitlement, and the feminine quality of deep receiving has been turned into obligation, you end up reenacting cultural scripts instead of discovering each other. Consent becomes a checkbox instead of a living conversation. Desire shrinks from wonder into performance. You ache for polarity without losing equality, for closeness without losing yourself. But without an integrated center, you toggle between control and compliance, between demanding relief and disappearing to keep the peace. You call it incompatibility. Sometimes it's simply unintegrated energies treating each other as foreign. The split seeps into your work in quieter ways. Organizations canonize the linear. Targets, KPIs, pipelines, sprints. Doing is rewarded. Being is a liability, unless it can be branded as mindfulness and measured as productivity gains. Curiosity, incubation, deep listening, the feminine modes of intelligence, are tolerated in the innovation lab and exiled from quarterly planning. Your calendar becomes a fortress of small obligations, and somewhere, your capacity to hold complexity gets traded for efficiency theater. The attentional economy exploits your unbalanced nervous system. Dopamine spikes with each notification. The basal ganglia engraves the habit loop, and you become a creature of tiny rewards. The default mode network, the spaciousness where insight and meaning consolidate, atrophies under the tyranny of perpetual focus. Without receptivity, action decays into reactivity. Without direction, openness dissolves into overwhelm. Burnout arrives not only from too much work, but from work performed with half of yourself. Biases run the office too. Authority bias keeps you deferring to the loudest certainty. Survivorship bias builds myths around the handful who made it by doubling down on grind, ignoring the unseen costs and the many who cracked. Status quo bias keeps the process going because it's legible to those with power. Workplace cultures mislabel feedback as dominance or appeasement, depending on who speaks. Women penalized for assertiveness, men punished for vulnerability, non-conforming people punished for existing. Not because anyone sat down and decided to be cruel, but because systems preserved the split that built them. Zoom out. Politically, whole populations project their exiled energies onto parties and leaders. One banner offers protection through control. The other offers care through inclusion. Without integration, the sides caricature each other. Order is fascism. Empathy is weakness. Group polarization and the availability heuristic inflate extremes. Algorithms profit by feeding you the sharpest edges of the archetypes. Outgroup homogeneity bias convinces you that they are monolithic. Memes become morality. You outsource your missing qualities to a candidate who promises to enact them for you, and you rage when they fail, because no one human can hold what a culture refuses to cultivate internally. Consumer culture drinks from the same spring. If you're cut off from your own softening, you buy comfort. If you're cut off from your own clarity, you buy authority. The market sells you edges and aesthetics, boss mugs and crystal altars, testosterone boosters and divine feminine retreats, tactical gear and goddess gowns. None of these is wrong, but each can be used as a proxy instead of a practice. The attention economy ensures you are perpetually aroused or soothed, never integrated. Because an integrated person is harder to manipulate. Even your body keeps the score. Chronic sympathetic activation, living in go mode without seasons of receptivity, has been correlated with anxiety, insomnia, digestive issues, and a general flattening of affect. Allostatic load accumulates like invisible rust, wearing down systems that were meant to cycle. Breath gets stuck high in the chest. Posture narrows to protect the heart. Interoception, the insula's quiet capacity to sense internal states, dulls under the constant noise of distraction and threat. When you finally pause, the stillness feels like withdrawal because your nervous system has learned to mistake adrenaline for aliveness. On the other hand, a life over-identified with receptivity without direction can slip toward learned helplessness. Passivity masquerading as surrender, where the future becomes something that happens to you. Neither pattern is moral. Both are costly. Education trains the split early. We grade for linear outputs and punish rhythmic learning. Boys are often told to sit still while their bodies need movement. Girls are often praised for compliance while their voices need risk. Artistic curiosity is framed as optional. Embodied wisdom is deemed extracurricular. We teach the head to answer and the body to wait. By the time youth meets adulthood, many have mastered performance but not presence, ambition but not devotion. The result is a generation that can optimize but struggles to orient. Our relationship to the earth mirrors the internal divorce. A culture infatuated with extraction and control treats the planet as an inert resource, a projection of the masculine untempered by receptivity, while countercultures sometimes romanticize return without stewarding structure, dissolving into performative purity that cannot scale. Policy swings between technological conquest and sentimental retreat, rarely integrating disciplined innovation with embodied reverence. The climate crisis asks for a choreography we rarely practice. Decisive action, guided by deep listening. Boundaries informed by belonging. The deeper ache is identity level. When you adopt the split as truth, you build a self around avoiding dissonance rather than metabolizing it. Cognitive dissonance becomes an enemy to anesthetize, not an invitation to grow. Predictive processing, the brain's habit of minimizing surprise by fitting reality into old models, keeps you reenacting the same energetic patterns because novelty feels like danger. You select environments and relationships that won't challenge your energetic identity. The prison starts to feel like home. The kicker, the split is contagious. Children mirror what you embody, not what you say. Teams mirror what leaders regulate toward. Communities mirror what they reward. The longer you live divided, the more normal division seems. The more normal it seems, the more ubiquitous its harm becomes. Addictions as ersatz rituals, conspiracies as ersatz meaning, outrage as ersatz agency, sentimentality as ersatz intimacy. The cycles tighten, the costs compound. You begin to recognize the trap. Not because you're a bad person or a weak one, but because 1,000 tiny forces, biological, psychological, economic, historical, nudge you into halfness and then sell you relief for the symptoms of being incomplete. How many of your choices have been made to avoid being exiled by a tribe? How many of your stances are costumes for belonging? How much of your fatigue comes from performing an inner war? If the consequences are this woven in, then solutions that tweak the surface will fail. This isn't about trading one aesthetic for its opposite. It isn't about switching teams. It's about revolting against the fragmentation itself. So what does a rebellion look like that doesn't just repaint the bars, but dissolves them? How do you retrieve the exiled qualities without flipping into their caricatures? How do you become a person who can be both river and bank, sword and bowl, mountain and rain, on purpose? Rebellion begins quieter than you think, not with a flag raised or a bridge burned, but with a vow whispered in the bones. I will not live split. I will not call half a life balanced. You've tried to fix yourself by choosing a side. Now try this. Refuse the premise. Your task is not to maximize one pole and manage the other. Your task is to build the one who can conduct both. Not a referee who blows whistles at your impulses, but a maestro who knows when the cello must weep and when the drum must drive. Call this center the sovereign. Jung would call it the self. The Sufis might call it the heart, the place where opposites kiss and do not cancel. Counterintuitive move number 1. Begin with your body, not your ideas. You cannot argue your nervous system into integration. You must train it. The salience network that decides when to focus and when to open is like a muscle. The vagal brake that steadies your heart is like a hinge. Train the hinge, and the door between agency and receptivity stops slamming. Try a minimum viable ritual of sovereignty. Orient. Let your eyes find 3 points in the room. Slow head turns. Name what you see. This tells the limbic system. Here, now, safe. Breathe like someone trustworthy. In for 4, out for 6. Longer exhales signal the vagus that you're allowed to settle. Ground. Place a palm over your lower abdomen, another over your sternum. Ask silently, which quality is called for, direction or devotion? Wait. Listen. Act from the answer. This waiting is not passivity. It is coiled clarity. The pause is muscular. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. Your rebellion is against urgency theater, not against action. Counterintuitive move number 2. Speak to your inner opposites out loud. 2 chairs. In one, the part of you that embodies direction, boundary, choice, taking the step. In the other, the part of you that embodies receptivity, feeling, attunement, taking the world in. Sit in one chair and say, what do you fear about the other? Sit in the other and answer. Repeat until the accusations turn into requests. You are not eliminating a rival. You are drafting a treaty that both can sign. Then, ask the sovereign, the standing you who can hold both, to summarize what each needs. That summary is your immediate practice for the week. History is a study in this integration. Gandhi's satyagraha, truth force, was not softness avoiding conflict. It was disciplined tenderness refusing to dehumanize, direction without demeaning, receptivity without collapse. Harriet Tubman moved through forests guided by ferocious clarity and inner listening that bordered on the prophetic. Step, pause, sense, decide. Miyamoto Musashi wrote of the void as the center from which form emerges and returns, a sword guided by emptiness, not ego. These lives hum the same note. When the conductor is trusted, the orchestra can play louder and softer without panic. Practical rebellion in relationships looks like this. Appoint a leader and a listener for 15 minutes. The leader's job is to make one clear request at a time. The listener's job is to reflect, ask, "Is there more?" and offer the cleanest yes or no possible. Then switch. The roles aren't gendered, they're energetic. You are training polarity as a shared skill, not a stereotype. Practice. Clean boundaries. A boundary describes your behavior, not their character. I won't continue this conversation if we raise our voices. Not, "You're too intense." Direction protects connection. Receptivity protects dignity. Use a repair ritual. Hand to your own heart, 3 slow breaths. Name the energy you were in. I was all blade. And what you're bringing now. I'm here with bowl. Ask, can we try again? You are not conceding. You are reorienting. In intimacy, reclaim what the culture outsourced. Make consent a living choreography. Would you like me to lead for the next minute? What would receiving feel like in your body? Direction becomes an offering, not a demand. Receptivity becomes an art, not an obligation. Desire returns when safety and aliveness shake hands. You are allowed to be wildly polarized without pretending your humanity is a costume. At work, rebel by designing cadence, not just goals. Alternate build days and listen days. On build days, choose 3 moves that move the needle and execute without apology. On listen days, widen. Customer calls, white space, embodied walks where the default mode network can cross-pollinate. Keep a decision diary where you log not only what you chose, but which energy led and whether it served. Over time, a pattern emerges. You'll learn when your agency gets brittle and when your openness gets leaky. You are training the gear shift. Ritualize seasonality. Stop worshiping balance as an equal split at all times. Honor rhythm. Farmers do not scold winter for not being summer. Choose seasons. A month of disciplined structure. A week of deep receptivity. A day where you lift heavy things. A night where you melt. Strength plus restoration is not a lifestyle brand. It's a primal duet. Weightlifting teaches your nervous system that exertion can be regulated. Restorative yoga teaches it that yielding can be precise. Martial arts plus improvisational dance. Cold plunges plus hot baths. Box breathing plus humming. Alternating stimuli rehearses your body in the art of switching without fear. Rewrite your language. Treat masculine and feminine as verbs, not prisons. Try these replacements in your diary for a month. Instead of "be more masculine," write "bring devoted direction." Instead of "be in your feminine," write "practice intelligent receptivity." Instead of "find balance," write "create harmony." Language re-educates attention. Attention re-educates action. Reverse assign the shadow. If you habitually avoid voice, choose 1 daily micro-boundary. No meetings before 10. If you habitually bulldoze, choose 1 daily micro-receptivity. Let 3 seconds pass before responding. If you fear being too much, practice 1 daily, clean ask. If you fear not being enough, practice 1 daily, clean no. Build a record of survivable experiments where the world did not end because you brought your missing half to the room. Curate your counsel. Find mentors who model integrated direction and mentors who model integrated receptivity. Notice the ones who radiate gentle authority and the ones whose softness has spine. Ask each for a single practice that shaped them. Let your inner board of directors include both Apollo and Dionysus in their healed forms. Form that welcomes life, life that honors form. Your sovereign's job is to hear them all and decide. Shield your attention like a sanctuary. Algorithms profit from your unintegrated impulses. Set curfews, design friction, log out, grayscale your phone. Feed the feed that feeds both energies. Subscribe to a journal of ideas that challenge you and a publication that tells human stories that open you. Replace outrage with outreach. Once a week, call a neighbor, volunteer, sit in a circle where you have to listen without picking a fight. You cannot hate abstractly what you understand concretely. Integration scales to the civic when it is practiced locally. If you share a home with children or younger selves, let them see you switch. I'm in getting things done mode. After that, I'll be in listening mode. Show them that energy is a choice, not a fate. Model an apology that keeps dignity intact. Teach them that leadership can laugh and that tenderness can say no. Most radical of all, orient to meaning before metrics. Frankel's insight thrums beneath the rebellion. When a why is alive, how becomes a craft. Choose a North Star that neither subsumes you nor spares you. Meaning is not a mood, it is a marriage between what you offer and what you allow to move you. Without meaning, you will chase aggression to feel alive, or appeasement to feel safe. With meaning, you can be fierce without being cruel, receptive without vanishing. You can be precise without being punishing, generous without being gullible. The sovereign makes this marriage legal. And yes, this rebellion invites grief. You will grieve the years spent performing half of yourself. You will grieve the relationships calibrated to your split. You will grieve identities that kept you hired, admired, and desired. But grief is the river that brings you home. Do not confuse it with regret. Grief widens you. Regret hardens you. Let the grief teach you music only wide people can hear. The paradox is that the more integrated you become, the more deliciously polarized your life can feel. Because when both energies are owned, they can meet in you and between you without debt. Attraction stops being a rescue mission and becomes a celebration. Work stops being a performance and becomes an offering. You stop outsourcing your soul. What waits beyond rebellion? Not a tighter technique or a better brand of balance, but a recognition that dissolves the fight at its source. A truth that does not erase the poles, but reveals what holds them. Shall we go there? Before the city wakes, you stand by the window and notice the world moving in two directions at once. Night relinquishes, but not all at once. The horizon burns and the streetlights still hum. Your lungs understand before your mind does. Inhale, exhale. The heart knows. Gather, release. The tide repeats itself in miniature beneath your sternum. Life is not one thing. Life is a relationship. And all this time, you thought the relationship was between you and the world. What if the primary relationship is within you, between offering and opening, between choosing and allowing? And both are sacred, because both are how life breathes through you. Here is the realization that unties the knot. Masculine and feminine are not genders, not costumes, not cages, not even personalities. They are the two gestures of aliveness. They are the grammar of becoming. One says, I will. The other says, I am willing. One is a hand extended. The other is a palm upturned. One is the bank that gives the river its shape. The other is the river that gives the bank its purpose. When you mistake either for the whole, you drown or you dry up. When you remember they are a duet, the music returns. What if you have been trying to be music by clutching a single note? You are not the blade or the bowl. You are the room in which the table is set. The sovereign you have been training is not a third energy competing with the first two. It is the depth that holds both without flinching. Call it heart, call it awareness, call it soul. It is the capacity to be unthreatened by your own range. From that depth, direction becomes devotion, and receptivity becomes intelligence. From that depth, courage feels like kindness. From that depth, surrender is not defeat, but exquisite participation. You do not lose yourself by opening. You meet yourself more fully. You do not harden by choosing. You honor your life with a yes that can be trusted. Think of how many wars inside you have been fought by amnesiacs. The part that acts forgets the part that feels, then blames it for the cost of numbness. The part that feels forgets the part that acts, then blames it for the cost of drift. The deepest truth is amnesty. You forgive both for what they did in your absence. You draw them back to the same fire and say, "The house is yours," together. Then comes a miracle so simple it's easy to miss. When each side knows it will not be exiled again, it softens. The blade stops flashing to prove it belongs. The bowl stops leaking to make its need invisible. What looks like maturity from the outside is often just safety on the inside. Look wider than your life, and the universe confesses the same pattern. Galaxies spiral with structured ferocity, while dark matter receives and holds. Seeds crack open into ordered stems because the soil kept them in its dark embrace. Logos and Eros form and flow, Apollo and Dionysus. The pairings are as old as myth because reality itself seems to prefer a conversation to a monologue. Why would your psyche be the exception? Why would your love, your art, your work escape the grammar that the cosmos loves? Here is the pivot that makes your past coherent. You were not wrong to hunger for polarity. You were starving for your own. Every crush on a person who seemed to possess the quality you refused. Every fight that was secretly a plea for the other to hold what you were scared to touch. Every ambition that turned brittle because it was untethered from wonder. Every tenderness that turned smothering because it was untethered from spine. These were not failures of character. They were invitations, misread as verdicts. Once you see this, shame loses jurisdiction. You stop apologizing for your power and your softness, because both are simply instruments in service of the same song. What then is love in this language? Not a mood, not only an emotion. Love is the recognition of the same depth in yourself and another, the sovereign seeing itself. From love, direction is service, not domination. It offers shape without theft. From love, receptivity is wisdom, not erasure. It receives without disappearing. This is why the most magnetic humans you've met felt paradoxical. They could hold a gaze like a promise and bow to mystery like a prayer. They were not split. They were accurate. The old fear whispers, "If I own both, will I become illegible?" You will become specific. People who cannot benefit from your division might leave. People who thrive on your wholeness will arrive. Work that requires your performance may resist. Work that requires your presence will open. The decision to be integrated is not a brand strategy. It is a trust in reality, a wager that life is kinder to those who meet it with their full width. And yes, there is a humility at the center of this. Integration is not control, it is collaboration. You do not command the tide, you partner it. Some days call for sword, some for bowl, many for both in the span of an hour. The practice is not to nail the ratio, it is to remain in the room, to keep the door between energies oiled, to greet disruption with curiosity and return. Even your missteps become choreography when you are willing to repair. The floor of your life, once a battlefield, turns into a studio. So what do you actually do now, with this recognition smoldering in your chest? You tell the truth. First to yourself, then to your people. You say, "I have performed halves, I'm done." You ask of each decision, does this move come from devotion or fear? You listen for the answer beneath the noise, and when you hear it, you honor it, even if your old identities protest. You stop outsourcing your missing qualities. You embody them in small, holy repetitions until your nervous system learns the new home. You bless yourself in public, a clear no spoken with warmth, a clear yes offered with spine, tears that do not beg, laughter that does not gloat. You become a member of the world again, not an avatar of a tribe. There will be moments when the old myths flare, when someone tries to shame your edge or your openness. Remember, the ultimate truth is not that there are two kinds of people. It is that there is one life moving through two gestures, and you are capable of both. If they ask you to choose, choose fidelity to the room in which the table is set. Choose as the place where opposites can sit and break bread. Step outside now, if you can. Feel the air invade itself against your skin. Hear a bird insist that morning is a promise it intends to keep. Somewhere, a siren wails. Somewhere else, a child laughs. Both belong to the same city. Place a hand on your chest and a hand on your belly and say quietly, so no one but the truth can hear it. I will be river and bank. I will be mountains and rain. I will carry a blade that blesses and a bowl that remembers. I will not live split. Then walk back into your life and let the small things prove it. Pour the coffee like a ceremony. Send the message you've avoided with clarity that does not bruise. Put your phone down and let a story change you. Lift something heavy and lay something down. Build and listen. Decide and receive. Shape and be shaped. Let the day be a call and response between the two hands you finally trust to hold the same instrument. When night returns, it will not feel like loss. It will feel like the second half of a vow. And when you wake again, you will know what the ache under your ribs was asking for all along. To live the truth that made you, the truth that remakes the world whenever a person remembers it. Not half, not balanced, but whole, and therefore generous. Not one against the other, but one through the other. Forever making a life that sounds like a song you were always meant to play.